Hello everyone, and welcome to part 1 of the tutorial for rigging Head-Kun. Head-Kun is my free live 2D learning asset. She goes over the basics of nice head angles, mouth parameters, eye blinks, and even how to duplicate your eyes. She's just a very bare bones head because I wanted it to be available for anyone who wants to just pick up and try learning live 2D, even if they use the free version, which has a limited amount of parameters you can use. So there's not a lot of physics on this model, but there are some eye physics because you can sneak them in. So why don't we get on over to it and start with the eyes. Alright, now we're over to Head-Kun in live 2D itself. So as you can see, Head-Kun is pretty basic. I just wanted it to be a pretty normal thing. So we have our head base, our head shadow, and our outline for the head. Alright, so getting right into it, why don't we look at Head-Kun itself? As you can see, I already have my right eye rigged up, so why don't we go show you what that looks like. So this is how I have Head-Kun's eyes all rigged up for the blink. This is the blink without smile on. And this is the blink with smile on. We also have the eyeballs turning. And there is some physics, but we'll get into that a little later. So why don't we go ahead and start rigging up the left eye. So to begin off, when we're going to be looking at rigging our left eye, we're going to have to first change some of the parameters in our eye left open parameter. It'll be one of the pre-given to you parameters in live 2D, so just look for IL open. And then we're going to right click while on top of it and press edit parameters. When we've done that, you'll see that this box comes up. It tells us our name of it, what the parameter ID will be, and what our minimum and max is. The max normally when it comes in is just 1 on this parameter, but we want to set it to 1.2 as you see here. We don't want to change repeat or blend shape. We're going to just leave those as they are, and we'll just be pressing OK. So as you can see, now that we have our parameter set up, if I move the IL open, nothing happens because, well, nothing's being rigged at the moment. So we're going to go in initially, and we're going to first grab our eye whites. This is what will pretty much control what is shown from your iris itself, as we want to clip our iris to the eye whites. So I have, what you do is you copy your ID, click on your iris, paste it in using Control-V, and that's pretty much it. Now that's perfectly clipped to your eye whites, and if you mess with the eye whites and move it around, it doesn't show anymore. Next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to grab the under eyelid, and we're going to want to grab our eye whites. We're going to click both of them and make sure both of them are highlighted. And as you can see here, we have a glue. So we're going to go and glue these together. So we're going to go into our edit mesh at the top, and we're going to lasso and select everything that we want to be the same. We're going to lasso them, and you want them all to be highlighted in red. Then you're going to press Control-G, and you should see green circles around those red dots. That means that they're glued together, and that means that those parameters will now affect one another by pushing and pulling. Think of it like these are now an elastic. So whatever the one side does, it will affect the other side. So if I just grab my under eyelid and I just pull it away, you can see the eye whites come with it. The same will go for the eye whites. So you've just pretty much made it so there are two pieces on an elastic and you're pushing and pulling, trying to make it move. So that's what that is. Now that we have our eye whites all set up, let's get to rigging them on how to close. So we have our parameters set up for 0 to 1.2. What we're going to want to do first is click the 2 dot adding keyform, so add 2. It will add it to the lowest part, the minimum of the parameter and the maximum of the parameter. And then what we're going to go into is the keyform edit. located at the top. It's like a box with 3 dots inside of it and a black bar across the top. It's pretty noticeable when you see it. And we're gonna go in here and we're gonna wanna add a keyframe at 1. And we're gonna wanna add a keyframe at 0.2. Don't be like me and put a point. And then we're gonna press OK. The reason why we want to do this is at 0.2, we're gonna have a partially closed eye. So the transition is just nicer and you're not just, your blinks look a lot smoother this way. So our 1 is just our eye at rest, which is what it currently is. Our 0.2 will be our eye shocked, which you can see here on the right eye. So at rest, shocked, relaxed, and down. This gives you a nice, smoother look to your eye when you do it. So we're gonna start with our shocked. We have our eye white selected, and we're gonna go up to solo. We're gonna click that alone, and then we're gonna grab our brush, our tool brush. We're gonna increase the size of our brush to quite large, as we want this to be a pretty smooth transition. And we're gonna pull up our eye whites to where they just reach the top of where our eyelash line at the top of the head is currently. And then we're gonna turn off solo. You can't really see it much right now, but on an actual model, this would show a lot more. Then we're gonna go down to the 0.2, and we're gonna do the same thing. You can stay in solo for this, but I wanted to show you all what would actually be happening. And we're gonna take our eye down. For this one, I have the eye closed slightly bit more than others, but as you can see, we also have to bring up the bottom of the eyelid. So we're just gonna do that. I like to have my brush set to 0 for this, as I can move things much more smoothly and you don't get any real jagged lines. And then I just go until I'm pretty much happy with it. And then once you're done with that, you're gonna wanna do Control-Shift-C. This will allow you to copy that parameter's position, keyform positions, and then Control-Shift-V. If you do not press Shift, you're going to just copy the entire layer from your hierarchy over here, and it will just duplicate it. You have to do the Shift. The Shift is what indicates that it's copying keyframes, not the actual illustration itself. And then, of course, we're just gonna take it down. We're just gonna send it all the way down. We're gonna wanna squish this as much as we possibly can. As you can see, there's a little bit of issues because I still have to do the under eyelid, but don't worry about that too much, as we'll be getting to that shortly. A lot of the times I like to try and line up all of my keyframes to just line along one single line that I've defined down the middle of my eye whites. You don't have to do this, but the closer they all are, the nicer it will look when you open and close your eye. It will also make it easier when you're trying to hide the eye whites behind your eyelashes. Now, as you can see here, our eyelid stretched with our actual eye whites as we open and close. This can be done for multiple things. You can either have tear ducts and have it so that your tear ducts move with your eyelash, but the bottom of the eye whites don't move. You can also make it so that you just have to move the eye whites and that, not the eye whites, the lids, the eyelids, and have the lashes attached to them, but the eye whites stay hidden behind the bottom lid and top lid. It depends on what you're looking for, but I prefer this method a lot more. I just feel it looks a lot smoother, and I don't have to worry for a lot of clipping when it comes to the X and Y head positions. Now that we have our eye open close parameters all sorted out for the most part, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna grab our eyelash, our top eyelash here, and we're gonna add it into our parameter again. Same thing as we did for the eye whites. All right, so now that we have all of our keyframes in for our top eyelash, we're gonna move on to actually rigging it up. So we're gonna select our top eyelash. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the top. As you can see, I've already put my mesh on it. For this one, I went into the mesh editor and I traced around and then put a line right down the middle. But you can, most of the time, you should be able to press heavy deform or a standard for most people, but I personally don't like standard. I find it can be a little too choppy. So I go in and I draw out the whole outline in the mesh editor with the additive of the point tool. And then I just go around and I add the middle and then I press connect, auto connect, and that's how I get my meshes. You don't have to do that for everything, but I find with the eyes, I like to just be a bit more particular. Then we're gonna go up to the top and we're gonna do our deform path edit tool. As you can see, I have a deform path here. What you do is you click, then we would decrease or increase the width of our deform path. And you would just add a new point for your deform path at the edge of every red circle that touches the middle point of the following circle, which if you don't have them connecting, things can get a little weird. Let me show you what I mean. So as you can see, none of the red circles or even blue circles are touching each other. If I start messing with this, things like to break a little bit more, which doesn't look so nice. But having them nicely connected like this gives you a bit more of a smoother transition. Of course, you still have to be a little bit more finicky with it, but this does help with getting shapes the way you want. Now we're gonna do our fully open shocked eye look with our eyes being a bit more wide open than normal. So we're gonna bring our lines up. As you can see where our iris ends, that's where the maximum we can take this is. But we can always go back in if we don't like how low the iris is positioned. So we can always just go back in and edit that later. But with these points, we're just gonna move them up and smooth out the way it looks until we are happy with how it lines up and that nothing looks jagged or broken. You can even go in and alter the points themselves slightly to smooth it out a little bit more. But most of the time I find this is what works the best for me. And it just gets you that nice, smoother appearance. And it's much easier than trying to do it all via the brush tool, from my personal experience. You can do this also with the brush tool and just have the meshes appeared. But like I said, it's just my personal preference that I do it this way. So I'm gonna grab my top eyelid here, which is what's restricting our eye whites, as you can because it is still there and it is currently active, and that's what we're seeing here. So we're gonna do the same thing, add it on into the keyframes. I'm gonna add all of the aspects for my eyes into my keyframes at this point. All you gotta do is select all of the components you want. And then you're just gonna do the same thing we did earlier, adding in all the keyframes. And now we have all of our keyframes put in. We're gonna grab our top lid, which is what's causing us the issue, and we're gonna bring it up so that we just don't see the eyelid anymore. And there we go, shocked face. Nice big shocked eyes. You can also make this experience a bit more crazy if you wanted by one simple fact. Grabbing all of your eyes, and you're gonna make a deform parameter of it. You can then add in your shocked eyes and at 1 set a keyframe, our iris, and then we're gonna set a keyframe at 1. Then you can shrink the eye and make it so when you go super wide, you get the really shocked look. It depends on what you're looking for, but I find this is a great way of getting your expressions to show, because most of the time when you open your eyes that wide, you're really engaged in something. But that's another option you can do for that. But we're gonna go back because this model doesn't have that. But just keep that in mind if you want to do something like that yourself. And we're gonna go back to our top eyelash. Now that we have that done, we're gonna move on to lining it up with the relax phase. We're doing the exact same thing. What we're gonna do is we're gonna select our top eyelash. You'll see a red square in the middle. There's like this red outline of it. That allows you to just grab the piece and move it. I like to grab the center when I'm doing this, and I will smooth the eyelid down until the two ends, so the corner here and the corner inner, line up pretty close. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab those points from our deform path. I'm just gonna bring them down and line them up, and then we're gonna go through and make it look nice and smooth. You can even bring up your corners a little bit. And you can even go in with your brush and smooth some stuff out if you wanted. It's never going to be perfect when you use the deform path tool. I just find it helps quite a bit at getting that initial positioning issue done. And once again, we're gonna select our eyelash and we're gonna press Ctrl-Shift copy or Ctrl-Shift C and Ctrl-Shift V to get it to relatively the same position. As you can see from the right eye, without the smile on, the eyelid faces down, because this is what happens most time when you're closing your eyes. So we're gonna get that all in. We're gonna slide it down again a little bit. And we're gonna just move our eyelashes, our lash line down. We can grab these corners out here and scoot them up to give us that nicer look. And we'll just work this around until we're happy with the way it looks. That's pretty good. So now that we have that all done, you can see like we've pretty much got the eye opening and closing. Of course, everything's not perfect because we still have to do the same with the bottom lashes and the top lashes. So why don't we get that done? We're gonna bring that piece down just a little bit so the eyelash looks there we go. Then we're going to this area, just copy, we're going to last keyframe. If this happens, it might be because you have a single point on your mesh axis, like you don't have a full mesh. Just go to your eye area, put the mesh that you want, and then do Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. Then we're just gonna bring it up. We want to get the lines up super nice. So you can select the eyelash and eyelash and go solo. Then you can see where the eyelids end. Then you can line that up. So you don't have your gapping issues when you open up your eye. Just line those up the best you can. Then go back here. You can see we have just our little eyelashes sticking out the bottom here. We can remove those if you would like by just grabbing our brush tool and just pushing them up so we can't see them. Or you can keep them out if that's what you would prefer. But as you can see, when I open my eye, everything is lined up pretty nice. There's no weird gapping between the skin and the eye itself. Now we have our eyelash corner here. We've already got all set up in our parameters, so once again, same thing as before. We're gonna grab our brush tool. We're gonna stretch it up so it lines up nicely with our eye when we open our eye wide. We're gonna go down to our partially closed. And we're gonna squish it. You want it to squish it so it's lining up nice but stays at the edge of the eye. And then of course we're gonna wanna copy that over, so Ctrl-Shift-C. Bring that to last parameter keyframe, Ctrl-Shift-V. And then we're just gonna wanna squish it up nice and good. As you can see, it's coming at the top. I'm not too worried about that because I just wanna squish it up. Then I'm gonna grab my eye whites and I'm going to solo it again. I'm gonna grab just my eyelash side. I'm gonna bring it down to where it lines up pretty close with the bottom of the eyelash and the eye whites. As you can see, it's still not good enough, so I'm gonna just squish it down even more by using that box. We're gonna exit solo, and let's take a look at how that looks. As you can see, it lines up really nice. So that's your eye blink. That's pretty much all it is. You do the exact same thing with the eyelashes, so I'm gonna do that, and you guys can keep an eye, and I will be back shortly with the eye smile. So for our eyelashes, I forgot to mention one thing. We aren't going to actually use the mesh itself for the eyelashes. We're going to use a deformer. So up at the top, you'll see Create Warp Deformer. You're going to want to click that. So what you see is the number of brazier divisions. So this is how many division lines or points that you can scoot around are. Normally I have this set to 2 and 2, so that's where we're gonna set it at. Now we're gonna introduce something that is called a bit of an overload. Normally you're only allowed to put 10 conversion divisions, but you can overload it if you want. I like to do, for something this small, I'm gonna say I'm gonna do a 10 and 10, but for bigger things, it's normally a 30-30. You will get an error when you press create. It says can't go larger than a 9x9, but it's just telling us that we shouldn't do that and that we have overloaded what it's supposed to be there. But we don't have to worry about that too much because it won't affect it very much. Once again, we're going to add in our keyframes. And now we have our eyelashes all ready to go. So just with this deformer, as you can see, these are our brazen divisions, these green crosses throughout our piece. We can grab those and we can scoot them up. And now our lashes line up nicely. So you can see there's still one missing down here, so we're gonna raise them up. We're gonna line them up to our best of our abilities. As you can see, looking nice. We're gonna want to make this one nice and long since it already is long. We don't want it to look squished. There we go. Now, when you first make you'll discover that there's this weird red box on the outside you're going to put it on, you're going to please. So access corner and temporary default. Temporary default, you get this blue box. This is all you use without needing to use any of your points. This is going to try to mesh itself, but I recommend doing it for this and reason limited. So you can also just try to get rid of this extra top package and all this red dots too, and then you can just grab those points individually. But right now, I'm just going to click on the right already, so right back. Then we're just going to down. We're going to see this up slightly. Slide over your eye. You see? No, first last thing I have to do is click this we had before. So with the eye being closed, the eyelashes would actually be facing down. This is pretty simple. The way I do this is really simple, especially for this model, is with the red box implemented, I'm gonna grab the top parameter and I'm gonna just flip it upside down, dragging it till it's past and then it flips. At this point, I will do my adjustments to line everything up the way I want, like we did earlier for the applying it to eye open. And once I'm satisfied with it, eyes are closed. And we have officially established a blink. As you can see, I have my two eyes rigged up separately, but normally what I would do is I would select everything from my one eye, and then I would duplicate that onto the other eye. But I'll show you how to do that later. All right, so we're gonna move on to our eye smile. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our under eyelid and our bottom lash. We're gonna make sure both of them are selected. And we're gonna wanna grab the deformer from our bottom lash. And we're gonna make a deformer with the both of them. Now that we have both of those set up, we're gonna click the add two keyframes to your smile parameter, the smile L parameter, because we're working on the left eye. And we're gonna click that. Now 0 means that there's no smile activated and 1 means that there is. So we're going to want to scroll it all the way over to 1, grab our brush tool, and we're going to just scoot it up. As you can see, there's a bit of an issue with the under eyelid, so we're going to grab the under eyelid. We're going to add that in particularly. So at this point, you can see the under eyelid is activated in eye open and eye smile. So that just means you have to go through each keyframe and make sure that it's all set up the way you want. So we're going to just grab the points and scoot them up so that the eyelid lines up much nicer. Once you're satisfied with that, just gotta do the same for the rest of the parameters, which I'm gonna zoom through. So now we're gonna move on to actually tracking the eyes, where they move and how they go across your face. So we're gonna work on the eyeball X and Y, as you can see from the right eye. We're gonna add also a parallaxing effect that would actually occur with your eye, because fun fact, your iris is actually concaved in, so as a result, your pupil actually will remain closer to one side than the other. So we're gonna do that as well to get a really nice look. So to start off, we are going to grab our iris itself, and we are going to go up to our warp deformers, and we're gonna create a warp deformer. I'm gonna call it IXY. And we're gonna wanna set it, I forgot to change that. We're gonna wanna set it to 2, 2. So we're gonna wanna set it to have we're gonna set it to 5, 5. And then we're gonna set our Bezier division numbers to 2, 2. The reason for this is we wanna try and get our center as close to the pupil as we can, and if it doesn't line up perfectly, you can press Control and then click, and you'll be able to slide it and put it into the exact position you want it. Just make sure that when you move it, all of the red dots that are there that represent all of the points from your actual mesh itself are within the boundary of the new blue. So there we go. So now we're going to click our eyeball X, and we're going to decide how we're going to move them left to right. So we're gonna grab the center point, and we're gonna slide it over to the left. And we're gonna do the exact same thing for the other side. Now we're gonna do that parallaxing effect I was talking about earlier. So sliding all the way to the left, you can see we have the red outline. We're gonna click the X to get rid of that temporary lock deformer, and we're gonna grab our center point alone. And then we're gonna scoot it over. And we're gonna shorten our parameters so that they squish a bit more. This will be to your own particular liking, but as you can see, now we have our parallaxing effect. If you want, you can even like drag this one out so it has more of an effect. Just depends on what you're looking for. And we're gonna do the exact same for the other side. So going all the way across. If your temporary comes up again, just press the X and it'll disappear. Otherwise, just leave it as it is, because it shouldn't carry over to the other side. And we're just gonna do the exact same thing. Drag over the pupil. Shrink that, shrink the eye. Grow that. Compress, compress, compress. And get it to the way that you like. And now you have your parallaxing effect. And you can adjust it more. But there's your eyeball X parameters. So we're gonna do, it's the exact same for the eyeball Y, so I'm just gonna quickly zoom through that. So as you can see, we're gonna link these. You can see these little links here. You're gonna click them and it'll link the two parameters together. And then we're gonna head up over here to our panel, and we're gonna click, and we're gonna go all the way down to synthesize corners. pop shows up. In the top, it will say your first parameter is eyeball X. In the bottom, it should say eyeball Y. If it doesn't say these, just make sure that you have specifically your eyeball X and your eyeball Y parameters chosen so that we can synthesize the corners for these. What this is going to do is it's going to take the corner parameters, the ones that we couldn't rig, that will look a bit awkward, and it will try to merge how it should look between the X and Y. This will save you a lot of time, but just know you may have to do some tweaks because it's not always perfect. Then we're going to scroll down and press OK. And now if we zoom around, we should be able to see our eyes track. And we're just going to be doing the exact same thing with the eye shine, so just select your eye shine and go to it. So as you can see from my little speed through there, the eye shine is exactly the same. Now let's say that you have your pupil separated from the background of your iris, or your sparkles separated from the background of your iris. All you're gonna do is make sure you have those inside your eyeball XYs so that when you move around, they move with the eye, pretty much. It'll also allow you to make everything parallax together rather than having to do each set individually. But like I said, this one is designed specifically for people who are just starting off and may not have access to the full version, so I want it to be available for everyone to learn. Now at this point, we have pretty much covered everything to do with the eyes. We've made our eye. We made our eye. We made it blink. And we made our eyes move. So what else could we do? Well, eye physics, as I mentioned earlier. So if we grab, you can see here that we can make our eye grow larger and smaller. We can make our eye shine move when we blink. We could even make our eyelashes wiggle a little. So why don't we get to doing that? So as you can see here, I already have the eyelashes for the left eye done. So why don't we clear that and we can go from scratch? As you can see, what we're going to want to do is just make them move nicely. So let's get to work. First, I'm going to clear everything that I already have set. And we're going to start from scratch. So we're going to grab our eyelashes themselves. Here, we're going to set up a deform parameter. We're going to select it, and we're going to add it to our eyelashes. As you can see, nothing happens now. But what we're going to do is we're going to grab our brush tool. And we're going to increase the brush size to whatever you want. You can do it there, or you can hold B and drag, and it'll increase the brush size. You can also adjust your brush weight up here, so how much it'll affect, and how stiff your brush is. So everything in the middle circle there would be very stiff, and everything on the outside would be softer. I just have mine set to 0 right now, because that's just what I prefer. So we're gonna move our lashes down. Oh, I messed up. It's fine. I'm gonna just, because I put it on the wrong parameter, Control-Shift-Copy, and I'm just gonna scoot it down to the right parameter. And we're gonna go up to the one that's set properly, and we're just gonna reset. And as you can see, now our lash moves up and down. Of course, these physics I have a little bit crazier because I want to show you guys, but it's the exact same when you go up. I feel like the downward one is a little too crazy, so I'm gonna reset it so I can fix that. There we go, nice little physics bounce. So as you can see, we're gonna do that, but as you can see from the right eye, the rest of our lashes have a little bounce too. It's very simple how to do this. We're just gonna select our bottom lash. We're gonna add a physics parameter, or a deform parameter for our physics, and we're gonna add that into the eyelashes as well. Once again, we're gonna move up. We're gonna just slightly make the lashes move up, and then we're just gonna slightly make them move down. So have a nice little bounce to them. And the same will go for our actual eyelid, top eyelash lid. So we're just gonna make it, wrong brush. Just gonna grab from the corner here and make it go down slightly. These come up slightly. And we're just gonna make these go up, slightly down. So we have a nice little soft bounce. Now that's all of our eye physics for the lashes. Now we just have to do the eye wiggle itself. So we're gonna grab our iris and we're gonna add that directly into eye wiggle. We're not gonna make a deform parameter this time. We're just gonna grab our iris itself and add it into our wiggle. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our iris itself and we're gonna add that directly to wiggle. I'm gonna show you guys why. Because as you can see from the way I set up my mesh, I have it so the circle, there are two circles, the outer circle that goes around the entire eye and an inner circle that goes around just the pupil. We're gonna use this so we can get the pupil to have a nice little bounce. You could do this even further where you can add a circle around the inner circle section there, and yeah, you could get even more bounce to it. But this is what we're gonna go with. So now that we have our pupil set to our parameter called eye wiggle, you can name these whatever you want, just name them so you know what you're looking for when you go into the physics parameters. The physics editor. So now we're gonna just make our eye grow wide. So what I'd like to do is I like to click down below here. This is your temporary edit deformer. So we're gonna click that. I will grab the outer corners of my eye and just expand them slightly. Just like that. And then we're gonna press OK. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna select the lasso tool and we're gonna go around and get all of those points that we want. Just make sure that you have it so that there's that red circle around the outside, and then we're gonna just go in, select them all, go back to our brush tool, our select tool. We're gonna hold shift and increase it so it grows so that it stays the same size. Just gonna make sure our pupil line stays in the middle, which it does. And that's how we have our pupil grow. It's the exact same for the other way, but as you can see from the other eye, it's the exact same way. Of course, I did a little bit more crazy for you guys, but you understand. So because we already have that pupil selected, I'm just gonna shrink it right now and put it in the middle. And then we're just gonna select the iris again and press the temporary deform tool. And from those exact same corners, we're just gonna bring it in and shrink them. And I'm gonna bring in the outer corners as well, just so it looks more uniform. There we go. And there's your eye physics. And the eye shine is gonna be just like the same. As you can see, moves up and down slightly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select our eye shine and we're gonna click the eye shine parameter for eye physics. And I'm gonna add in the deforms there. Going up, we're gonna scoot it up slightly and rotate it. And then we're just gonna do the same when we go down. So you have a nice little bounce. What you can also do is increase it and shrink it. Let's make it get a little larger and then a little smaller. And that's about it. So now that we have all of our physics, and under modeling, we're gonna go all the way down to the bottom and we're gonna open physics scenes blending settings. This is where you're gonna actually be able to edit and set up your physics. Click and it will move everything around. But we're gonna show you how to set up your eyes and set up the physics for your eyes. So here's the physics components that you're gonna look for. This is where you're gonna make your physics setting that you want. This is where you're gonna tell it what input will affect it. And these are gonna be where you add your pendulums. And this pendulum is what determines how your eyes will work. So as you can see, the right eye is all set up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over to the open right eye. And the pendulum you see there moves. And Head-Kun's eye in tandem also moves. So we're gonna set that up right now. All right, so now as you can see, if I open and close the left eye, nothing really happens, but if I move the right eye, everything wiggles, which is what we wanna do with the left eye. So let's get to work. We're gonna go up into our physics settings and we're gonna click add, because we're gonna make a new blend group. We're gonna call it eye left wiggle. Then we're gonna go into our inputs, and we're specifically gonna wanna make sure our left eye open is what's affecting our input. You can either set this as position or angle, but I'm gonna have mine set as angle. I'm gonna have the effectiveness input set to 100, which means that it's taking in everything that that eye is doing. Now we're gonna go down to our pendulum and we're gonna add one pendulum because that's the only way we're gonna be able to add our outputs. We're gonna head all over to our output and we're gonna select all of our eye physics that we had made. So we're gonna get our eye wiggle, our eye shine, and our eyelashes. And we're gonna add one more pendulum. Now, if we test this, you can see things are moving. They're not perfect, they're not as nice as the other eye. So let's see what it looks like with position. You can say it doesn't look bad, which it doesn't. It could look better. So why don't we grab our eye wiggle and we set it to pendulum 2. Let's see what happens if we do that. Well, things start wiggling a whole lot more. Let's do the same with the shine. So this is the default settings that your parts of your pendulum will show up as. I personally like to shorten the duration to around 5 to 7. For this one, I'm gonna do 7. As you can see, both of them are now 7. If I blink, things are a little bit more crazy, which is fine. So we're gonna go into our shaking here. As you can see, it's both set to 95. Shaking can reach a maximum of 1. So as you can tell, that might be a little bit much. If I increase them to 1, things are gonna go nuts. So we're gonna take these and we're gonna select them and we're gonna set them to 0.8, both of them. So you can see things aren't moving as much, which is nice. We're gonna go to our pendulum 1 and we're gonna set it to 95. We're gonna send it back to what it was. And that's still a little bit too much, especially with the second one. So what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna set this one to 80 again, or 0.80. And then we're gonna head on over to the first one and we're gonna set that one back to 0.95, the second pendulum. As you can see, we have that nice bounce. It's a little bit overreactive. So why don't we switch this down to 0.90? And we're gonna reduce our reaction to 90 on that one. Now we have a nice little bounce. Our eyelashes do the same, and that's everything. And that covers most of that stuff. All right, so that's everything in our physics settings. As you can see, it's all ready to go. And if we press play, it'll just start going through stuff. At random, let's put random pose. As you can see, as it blinks, it moves around, and now the eyes have a nice physics effect to them. But there's one last thing we have to do for the eyes. So going back to our main page, there's one last thing we have to technically do for our eyes, and this is what I prefer to do when I do my eyes. As you can see, I already have my right eye all rigged and ready to go. So I'm gonna grab everything from my right eye. All right, so there's one last thing we have to do when we're making our eyes, and starting from complete scratch, is you're gonna wanna actually take the entire rig that you had made for your left eye, and we're gonna reflect it over to the right eye. So I'm gonna do this by going to our hierarchy over here, as you can see, and we're gonna wanna go through everything that goes with the one that we're currently trying to do. So we're gonna select our eyelashes, all of of them. We're gonna scroll all the way down. Select everything to do with our lashes. And as you can see, everything for our eye is currently selected. As you can see, everything for our eye is currently selected, including our glues. Remember to, if you're going to reflect, to include your glues, or you're going to have to redo the glues all together. So reflect with them. That's why I say going with this hierarchy is better, because you can easily find your glues. We're going to right click our screen, scroll all the way down to the bottom to where you see reflect. Now this pop-up should appear. What you're going to do is go through and everything that says X, you're going to click it, because we're reflecting horizontally, so that is the X-axis. So anything that is reflected horizontally is an X. So just select them. This way it actually reflects properly and doesn't end up looking very weird when you bring it over. So just do that and keep that in mind. And then we just press OK. And as you can see, our eyes are now reflected. But we have one little thing with that too. Our eyes are now linked to the same parameters. So how do we fix this? It's very simple and easy. We're going to select everything from our new eye. Parameters are now lit up in our parameters. So now what we're going to do is go over here. Sometimes it doesn't like to do it, but click it until you see this drop down. Press change, and we're going to switch it to our eye open. And now that's there. We're going to do the same with here, except it's going to be our eye smile. And now our eyes should move independently of each other. Now if we go over to physics, that we still have something to do here with physics. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our top right corner in our physics, where we had initially made our physics. We're going to go duplicate. I'm going to see how it says our eye left. We're going to put that as our right. When that pops up, we're going to press OK. Now everything is the same for physics, but we're going to set this up for our eye open. But you might say, we still have the issue. How do we fix this? It's the exact same thing we did before. We forgot to change our physics settings in our eye physics, our parameters in our eye physics. So we're going to select, we're going to go in and grab our eye, and we're going to change that to our other eye wiggle. It'd be better to name these differently. So if you want to rename stuff, just right click it and press edit parameter. So I'm going to name this eye wiggle right, so I can tell them apart. Eye wiggle, eye shine right. So then we're going to grab our eye shine, same deal. Change it to eye shine right. Then we're going to grab our lashes, and we're going to change, if I remember to click the lashes, and we're going to change that to the other eyelashes. Grab that deform parameter we made for that, change it, and add it to our lash. Now our lashes and our physics should move independently of each other. And congratulations! You've officially rigged your eyes for your VTuber. So now what we have to do lastly is we're going to go into our eye right wiggles. We're going to select everything that we have in our output settings, and we're going to delete it. Everything here, we're going to clear this all up. And then we're going to press add. We're going to scroll down to where our eyes are. We're going to grab our eye wiggle right, our eye shine right, and our eyelashes. We're going to put those in there. And now everything should move independently of itself. Ta-da! And you've officially rigged your eyes for your VTuber. Congratulations, you're on your way. We're going to cover brows, and we're going to cover mouth movements next. After that, we're going to move on to our head angles. But I hope that this tutorial helped you guys a lot with figuring out how you want to make your own VTuber and where to start when it comes to rigging. As I said, Head-Kun itself is completely free, so feel free to download her whenever you would like to study along and to experiment. You can also look at the PDF file on how I separate everything for my rigging. And as I have said before, Head-Kun is made so that even if you're starting off with a very simple version, or if you're just starting with the free version and you don't have access to the unlimited amount of parameters and you are stuck within 30 parameters being made, this way you can make a good looking model. And you might not have all the bells and whistles, but you'll still have a very smooth and lively looking model. But thank you all so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you next time.